Howdy, y'all. A third and final greeting as we wrap up this series. Once again, my name is Mike Perkins, and I'm the Vice President of Operations at North Rock Technical Services. We're an automotive-focused, outsourced IT department. Hopefully, you've not come across this video out of order, but if you have, I recommend that you go back to the summary video to get a flyover view of all the aspects of these changes that are affecting car dealerships. Once again, a quick bit about myself. I have been involved in the automotive-specific IT industry since Windows 95. To be honest, I went to school in 1990 and I've been there ever since. Sort of. One of the highlights of my education was in 2015, I started working towards an EC with a focus on technology and cybersecurity at MIT. And in January of 2020, just before the world blew up, I completed that program. Although one of my favorite highlights, I am still constantly learning because to remain relevant in this field that I love, that's just what you have to do. And my desire is to educate leaders in the automotive industry, and I work really hard to break down complex concepts into normal everyday language. I hate it when people try to talk over my head, and my guess is that you do too. So to recap, on October 27, 2021, the Federal Trade Commission announced a newly updated rule under the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, to require financial institutions to strengthen their data security safeguards to protect consumer financial information. This new rule specifically applies to non-banking financial institutions, let's just say car dealerships. Throughout this video, when I read the actual rules verbiage, it may include the word financial institutions. In these instances, please make a mental substitution with automotive dealership. This video is the final part of a three-part series intended to be a brief summary of the changes to the rule that affects automotive dealerships. Please keep in mind this is a high-level overview intended for a non-technical audience in order to explain the three main categories of new requirements. Those categories are planning and reporting, information security requirements, and testing your security. As I've mentioned in all the other videos, the very first requirement is to have a designated qualified individual or QI. This QI can be either an employee or outside professional, but would need to be someone with professional cybersecurity training, as they will be verifying that all of the protections are in place, and they will be the ones actually explaining the reports to the senior management. It would be very helpful if this qualified individual was not only a cybersecurity trained individual, but someone that had experience with automotive specific dealership IT. Now, the new FTC Safeguard Rule key provisions must be in place by December 9 of 2022, but the changes actually went into effect January 10th. So you have to get started early and get all the requirements in place well before that date, as there's significant penalties for non-compliance. And now we're down to the final section, security testing. So under the updated rule, there's two types of testing that are required: penetration testing and vulnerability scans. So what is an easy real-world equivalent to a vulnerability scan or a pen test or penetration test? You can think about it this way. A vulnerability scan would be like going around a house, checking the doorknobs to see what isn't locked, or looking at window locks to see if they're locked. And a penetration test or pen test would be the equivalent of trying to go through that door or window, coming in the house and seeing what they could potentially take. And if at some point a guard dog, alarm system, or other security measure would engage and prevent that malicious act. Now keep in mind, this isn't a perfect example because of course these scans and testing need to be done both from the outside in and the inside out. So what's the real difference between a penetration test and a vulnerability scan on a little less basic level? Well, a pen test is not simply a scan of your technology, it's a simulated cyber attack. Vulnerability scans look for known vulnerabilities in your network and systems and report potential exposure risk. You may have seen PCI scans that your credit card company has performed on the dealership, but those are strictly based on scanning your network from the outside only and are only a small snapshot of your total risk level. In order to truly know the areas of weakness, the scans need to be done from the outside as well as the inside. Vulnerability scans are significantly cheaper than a true penetration test, but they still give insight as to the issues that need to be addressed. The information gained from these scans, as well as the tasks that need to be performed, will be technical in nature and is more of a to-do list for your IT department. The things that would be included on this report are missing security patches, open ports on firewalls, tech talk like that. It is required that you have 2 of these tests done on an annual basis or when your systems have had a significant change, such as a move or if you add or purchase another location. So the rule actually states vulnerability assessments must be performed at least every 6 months and whenever there are material changes to your operations of business arrangements and whenever there are circumstances you know or have reason to know may have material impact on your information security program. Penetration tests. Penetration tests are intended to exploit the weaknesses in your IT network and determine the degree to which an attacker or criminal could gain access to your systems. Pen testing is much more rigorous than vulnerability scan, as it's essentially a form of hacking. The tester, known as an ethical hacker or white hat hacker, works on your behalf to look for vulnerabilities in your system. In that regard, their actual work is much the same as a criminal hacker. Unlike vulnerability scans, penetration tests are designed to identify not only weakness, but also test the ability to exploit them. Doing this demonstrates exactly how a cyber criminal would infiltrate your systems and what information they could access. With this knowledge, your qualified QI can pinpoint how effective the security controls are and which areas need improvement. Once again, the information gained from the penetration test will be included on the written risk assessments and annual report that we talked about in part 1 of the series. So the rule states, penetration testing, as defined by the final rule, is a process through which testers attempt to circumvent or defeat the security features of an information system. And monitoring must take the form of either continuous monitoring or periodic annual penetration testing and biannual vulnerability assessments. And with that, we finish out the series on the FTC Safeguards Rule, secure and compliant. I know that compliance is rarely fun or entertaining for anyone, but I hope I at least broke it down into easily digestible sections. I also hope everything I talked about was clear and concise, but if not and you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. Now, if you're thinking, wow, this sounds like a lot, and you're overwhelmed, that makes sense. I'm sure you just want to focus on selling cars. But if you do want to tackle all this yourself, I've created a free GLBA safeguards checklist, and you're certainly welcome to that just for the asking. As I've mentioned before, we would love to be your IT department, but if your dealership has an IT company or employee that you're really happy with, and you just need help with compliance, or you need someone with qualified individual credentials, please feel free to reach out to me. I can help get you set up with a full compliance as a service package, and we will gladly work alongside your current IT solution. I'm Mike Perkins. We're North Rock Technical Services. We're fast, friendly, and there when you need us.